Right, we're almost towards the end. So if you remember, I've talked to you guys about the very front of the BNF, so the front matter. We've gone through the main chunk of the middle of the BNF, so all 16 chapters, what they're about, the fact that every chapter is the system of the body. Within every chapter, there's the drugs related to that system. There's an overall treatment summary, and then the drug monographs have information about the specific drugs. What you now need to know, I've obviously told you about the appendices. The bit in between the index and, sorry, the bit in between the index and the chapters are appendices. So in the BNF, there's a total of 4 appendices. So if you look here, you can see that all of this blue are the chapters. Remember that black line going down was the index. This black chunk over here are the appendices. All right, there's 4 in total. The first appendix is for interactions, so drug to drug interactions or drug to food interactions. Okay, appendix 2 is related to borderline substances, and we'll go on to what that means in a second. Appendix 3 is related to cautionary and advisory labels for dispensed medicines. Again, we'll go on to that in a moment. And Appendix 4 is the wound management products and elasticated garments. So we'll go on to that again in a second. Right, the very first section was interactions. Now, obviously, the interaction section online versus the BNF, you'll find it in different places. So in the interactions, because it's a book, you will find it in the paper BNF at the very back in Appendix 1. The interactions online, when you type any drug in, if you scroll down, within that drug monograph, there's a section on interactions and you need to click into it. Okay. Once you do, all the interactions for all the drugs that interact with that drug will be listed alphabetical. And within that section, whether it's online or by paper, it will say whether the interaction is severe, moderate, mild, or unknown. And it'll also tell you the level of evidence that they have used to decide that this interaction exists. So whether it's by studies or whether it's theoretical, so anecdotal. If there's a severe interaction, it usually means that something needs to happen. So the drugs should normally be avoided, or you need to do it with caution and monitor the patients. But be really careful when you're reading the interaction section, because hopefully you can see from here, it's actually very hard. You can see that the writing is very small and very intricate. So you need to make sure you're looking at the right thing. So as a bit of practice, I want you to find out if amlodipine and simvastatin interact. So if you've got the paper BNF, obviously it's alphabetical. So I want you to find simvastatin. If you've got the online BNF, I want you to type in simvastatin. And either way, I want you to find the interaction. So online BNF, you scroll down, click on interactions, and it'll take you to a different screen. On that screen, you'll see amlodipine. You'll see a list of drugs, and at the very top, it's alphabetical or sort of towards the top. You'll see amlodipine. I want you to have a look at what it says, whether they interact, and actually follow the instructions and what you should do if a patient is prescribed amlodipine and simvastatin. And once you've done that, and once you think you have the answer, come for the next slide. So hopefully you saw, so this is an example, the paper BNF, but the information is the same on the online BNF. So you can see that amlodipine is listed there, and it says amlodipine slightly increases the exposure to statins, and in brackets, very specifically, simvastatin. Okay, so there are other statins. So statins is the drug class. But very specifically, is for simvastatin. Then it says adjust the simvastatin dose and go to page 203. And you can see that it says mild in the box and it says it's based on a study. And you can see from all the other drugs in the box, it says whether it's a severe, moderate or mild interaction. And afterwards, it'll tell you if it's theoretical or based on a study. But sticking with amlodipine, we go to page 203. The focus is a bit rubbish, but you would have seen if you've got the paper BNF or the online BNF that in the simvastatin monograph, under dose adjustments due to interactions, it says the manufacturer advises a maximum of 20 milligrams daily if you use amiodarone, amlodipine or ranolazine. So essentially, if a patient is on amlodipine, so they do interact and it's based on a study, but it doesn't mean that they can't have them both together. It just means that we can't go above the dose of 20 milligrams for simvastatin. All right, and that's just an example on how to find interactions in the BNF. The next section is the borderline substances that I mentioned to you, so Appendix 2. Essentially, a lot of patients can get certain foods and certain toiletries on the NHS. Okay, so obviously if a patient's celiac, if they're intolerant to various food types, there's certain things they can get on the NHS. All these things that are permitted on the NHS are listed in Appendix 2. So if you get a prescription for a food substance that is not listed in Appendix 2, that means that it's not permitted on the NHS. Okay? And there's a certain committee that advises on circumstances in which prescriptions are permitted. Appendix 3 is for cautionary and advisory labels. Okay, so if you type into your online BNF or if you have a paper BNF, go to Appendix 3, you will see this section, cautionary and advisory labels. And then you'll see at some point on the pages that there are a list of cautions and they all have different numbers. I think that's a really rubbish screen. I don't think you can actually see that, but that's okay. On your online BNF, you'll notice that there's 32 cautionary and advisory labels. Okay, and they're all numbered. They're numbered 1 to 32. Essentially what this means is that certain drugs need additional warnings on their labels. So when we hand out a drug to a patient, it will say the name of the drug, it will say the strength, it'll say the dose, so take 1 tablet, and it'll say the frequency, twice a day. Okay, but sometimes you need additional information on there, and that additional information can be found in these cautionary and advisory labels. They're added to the dispensing label when the drug is dispensed, and they're all about making sure that the patient or the carer know how to take the drug safely. So here's an example. I want you guys to find codeine, whether it's in the online BNF or the paper BNF. So type it in. Once you do, I want you to scroll to the bottom and click on medicinal forms. Okay. Once you've clicked into medicinal forms, so I've given you a picture of the paper BNF, you will see that under tablets, it says cautionary and advisory label number 2. Okay, there isn't one for solution for injection if you carry on looking down, but it says the same thing for oral solution. So it means that label number 2 needs to go on the physical label when the drug is dispensed. Okay, so if we look at what label 2 is, so if you go and type in cautionary labels and find out what label 2 is, label 2 actually says, warning, this medicine makes you sleepy. If this happens, do not drive or use tools or machines. Do not drink alcohol. So this needs to go physically on the label. So you will find that information. So if you need a cautionary and advisory label, you will find that information under medicinal forms, and you need to cross-reference it to the BNF. The cautionary and advisory labels, they are in Appendix 1, but to make it easier, they're also here at the very back of the BNF. So when you have a paper BNF, they're the very last page. Here's the last page. They're here, and they're just very simply listed 1 to 32. All right. Next section. Appendix 4 is the wound management product. So obviously there's a lot of dressings and bandages that you can get on the NHS. So they list the different types of bandages and dressings, and their sizes are on there as well. So that's all in Appendix 4. Then remember, we have the front matter, which we talked about at the very beginning, but also we've got the back matter. So after the appendices, towards the very end, right before the index, you have just a little bit more information. So the first bit of information is the dental and nurse prescriber formulary. So obviously you need to know that dentists and nurses can prescribe, but they can't prescribe anything. So within the BNF, you've got the dental prescriber formulary and you have the nurse prescriber formulary. And within these sections, so for example, dentists, you can see all of these are listed as drugs. So all of these are listed as drugs. The drugs that are listed on this formulary are drugs that dentists can prescribe. So if you ever get a prescription from a dentist and the drug is not listed on this formulary, then they cannot prescribe it. They are not permitted. So if you only have the online BNF, just type in dental formulary and the same thing will come up. Okay. There's obviously the index, which we talked about. There's the yellow card, which I already mentioned to you. Okay, for reporting adverse drug events. There's quick reference guides on what to do in emergency. So this is advanced life support algorithm for adults. Okay, and then towards the back, I find this quite helpful. There's a section on conversion of units over there. Okay, so this is about conversion of units, and here, and you can type, if you type into the online BNF conversion of units, it will come up with a page where it will give you how to convert between different masses, between volumes, between, for example, calories and joules, between, so for example, if a patient is 3 pounds, how many kilograms they are, how to convert between stones and kilograms, etc., and length. So it's actually really, really helpful. And the very, very last page, so that's the back page. Ooh, hit myself in the face. The very last page has a lot of information, but specifically over here, there's Latin abbreviations. And it's these Latin abbreviations that you need to know for your dispensing in the future. Okay, so if you type in Latin abbreviations into the online BNF, you will see that certain things, certain symbols or abbreviations mean certain things. So for example, you will see that B.D. means twice daily. So quite often on prescriptions, we will write 20 milligrams BD, which means on the label, it needs to say 20 milligrams or 1 tablet twice a day. We might write 40 milligrams QDS, and you will see from the Latin abbreviations that QDS means 4 times a day. So you need to know these Latin abbreviations. And that's it. So essentially, this book is a huge book, okay, but you will use it forever. So I graduated a long time ago-ish, not that long, but long-ish. And I still use it. Doctors that I work with use it, consultants use it, nurses use it. So you need to get on board with using the BNF and learn how to use it, because all the drugs that you will use will be listed in here. I think it's worth also noting that there is other information that can be found outside of the BNFs. But don't worry about that now. You'll start slowly learning that as you progress through pharmacy. But it's really important to read the BNF very carefully when you're getting information out of it, because it's very easy to miss really important information or misinterpret the information. Obviously, this is has been recorded for you guys to watch prior to the workshop. Obviously, it was meant to be during the workshop, but as you know, our workshop was reduced to 1 hour because it's going to face and it's a pandemic. But I guess the pros to having it in this way is that it's all recorded. If you ever need to remind yourself of a certain section within the BNF, you pull up the slides and you find that particular section, and you can just click on that section and play from that current slide. So you'll always have this now as a reference resource, which I think could be quite helpful. It's obviously uploaded into week 12, and I've also uploaded your workshop booklet onto here in that same folder. Feel free to look at it, but we will be going through it in the workshop, and I have also set you guys post-workshop tasks to do. And if you're interested, I've embedded multiple choice questions. I think there's 20 in total, maybe, multiple choice questions into Blackboard just for you to test your knowledge. Okay, so it's to get you using the BNF and testing what you know, so that hopefully by the time you get to your prescribing, dispensing classes next term, you'll be pros at it all, or at least have some sort of baseline knowledge. All right. Okay, well, thanks for listening to that. I hope you found it helpful, and I'll see you guys in the workshop.